Hi everybody, welcome back. We are focusing now on chapter 7, which is all about target marketing and how we're going to use this very powerful concept and tool in our hospitality, tourism, recreation, event, food service industries, and how we're going to use brand positioning to make sure that we utilize all of those assessments that we've completed to date. We've picked and identified the right target market or markets, and we've positioned ourselves well that we know this will be a success. It will make the remaining marketing plan process such a simpler, more effective process because we've done our homework in advance. We have a strong strategy. We know who we're going after. We know why we're going after them, and we know how to go after them. So the rest is a lot of fun, to be honest. So makes it more fun when we know we have a vision, a focus, a system, and we know when we put some effort into this, we're going to make something good happen for our organizations. So welcome to Target Marketing and Brand Positioning. We're going to start with a video clip of me. Something new and different, huh? Anyway, when I sought the expertise of colleagues in our industry who focus on marketing every day, as you've already seen a few of the real life videos of people telling how they utilize certain techniques in the marketing process incredibly well, but how they've also failed at marketing. So I asked many industry colleagues to tell a high and a low about what they've done really well in marketing and what didn't go so well, and what advice they have for students. So to do that, I had to do my own video first and send that to them so they had an idea of what I was looking for and asking of them. So knowing that, interestingly enough to even me, that when I did that video and I very honestly reflected on what I considered a great success and something that I considered a failure that I learned a ton from, and I don't regret that failure, because again, we want to high five failure here because that means we're trying something new and different, but I certainly want to learn from it every time too. So having said that, when I did that video and later reflected on what topic it related to, it was all about target marketing. Both my greatest success story in marketing and what I considered my one of my really big failures were all centered on this topic. So I start this chapter to you with my quick video on my high and low marketing story. Hi everybody, I'm Patty Janes, a faculty member at Grand Valley State University in Hospitality and Tourism Management, and I am here to share two things: my best marketing decision ever and my worst marketing decision ever. And I'm going to start with the worst. My worst decision ever was back when I was working for Marriott, and I was in marketing for many of the Courtyard by Marriott hotels. And at the time, we were in the Detroit market and had done a radio trade promotion with a radio station. So we traded so many room nights to get all this airtime on the radio, which in and of itself was really good. Except we traded that we would also host a Super Bowl party. And so the radio station used that as a promotion, and was giving away, listeners would call in and leave their name, and then they gave away this big Super Bowl event at our hotel. It was all good and great, with the major exception that it was a radio station called WRIF, which was a rock radio station. And our core demographic in our market with Courtyard by Marriott at the time was by far not the rock radio station listener. So all I can remember is hosting the Super Bowl party, and we had all the trade and advertising, which really wasn't ever our core audience, and then hosting this party and just kicking and screaming the whole way through it because all the wonderful folks that we had at the party were clearly not our regular core audience and customers. So that was my worst promotion and marketing effort. My best one, though, however, was just a couple years ago working with Oakland County Parks and Recreation. And I consider this one of the most fun ever because it was an incredibly tough economy a few years ago. And we were looking for ways to find markets and write a marketing plan for one of their water parks. And the best part of this story for me is that we were looking at all kinds of different market segments to target, and we had to be really creative and think outside of the box. So we were looking at the dog market, people who had dogs who might want a water park. And we were looking at all kinds of people who might have time available because there was so much unemployment and so many bad things happening that it was hard to find people who had that money. So we ended up identifying the unemployed market as a market. And for me, it's still one of the more creative ones that we've looked at. And we partnered with unemployment agencies and really looked at where were all unemployed persons at so we could reach them. And then we had a great promotion and an offer for an incredibly inexpensive time at the water park. We knew they had time. We knew they didn't have money. But it was not only kind of cause related, it felt really good. The bottom line was the media loved it, and we got just hundreds of mentions on radio, on news, and phone calls of people just loving what Oakland County was doing for people who were unemployed. But that was a strategic conversation and a plan to partner with the right agencies, and it just was so unique and out of the box, and it worked. So that was my story. So my advice, always know your market. Always, always, always know your market and know the markets that are served by the choices that you make to partner with or the media audience as well. So I hopefully have not made that same kind of bad mistake again. But secondly is think outside the box. We have to have creative things to sell and give to people in the tourism industry. And if we just do it like everybody else, it's not going to work. So have a great day. Thanks. There we go. I'm back. Anyway, it's kind of strange to see yourself on video, I have to admit, looking at myself. But I still think of those stories, and it's really interesting to me that they were centered on a target market decision that made it effective and a target market error in terms of a tactical decision to communicate with an audience that wasn't even one of our multiple target market audiences. So as we move forward in this section, what I believe to be true in our industry is we know that we have market segments we're trying to reach back in the 80s, if you remember back in history. And we also believe in targeting certain groups of people, more so on the for-profit side. The nonprofit side still might feel everybody is our market. They realize their segments, but get a little afraid of targeting a certain group of people. But we're still stuck kind of in the 90s with even that target marketing kind of concept. It is difficult and challenging, and we'll learn in this chapter more about why everybody doesn't completely buy into the target marketing idea. But I will say, strategically, this is a very important area that we, if we do right, will be incredibly effective. If we ignore, it will be one of the major reasons our business may not be as successful as it could be. So moving forward, welcome to Chapter 7 and the beginning of Chapter 8. And we're talking about target marketing and brand positioning, taking that strategy assessment. So target marketing, as we're going to define it this time, it's people served or desired, the people that we want to go after that have similar backgrounds, needs, and interests. And these target markets will always be unique to your organization. This is not a homogeneous target market. I can give you 8 descriptors and that fits every organization in our industry. In this case, we have to always consider the organization we're looking at, and then we always use a system and a process to break that overall big market down to people who have like needs, interests, backgrounds that make sense to split them up. So think of it in terms of one big group of people, meaning everyone, and yet I know for my hotel or my restaurant or my event, my festival, right, my tourism business, my attraction, my theme park, I know not everyone really is who I'm looking at serving. And even if I'm a nonprofit, I'm a Parks and Recreation department, I've had those organizations say to me, well, we serve everyone in this geographic area. And while I agree that their mission is certainly related to that. There's specific objectives each year do not relate to serving everyone. They don't need to serve everyone because there are other community type organizations that focus on the needs of some of the other markets. And just quickly, for an example, a nonprofit organization like a city parks and rec department may not focus on senior citizens because they have a strong Commission on Aging or senior center that takes that role and focuses on that market segment in their community. So why would the Parks and Rec department even target seniors when their needs are being addressed somewhere else? And they don't need to. They can put more energy into areas or markets that are underutilized. So regardless of your profit status, nonprofit or for-profit, we all should be target marketing. We are not really focused on everyone. And if we are, then we're really serving no one. And it might be just this year you focus on certain groups of people, and next year they might be slightly different. So that's part of our story. Think about even organizations you've worked for or interned at, and how do they approach this concept of identifying 4 to 8 targeted markets to invest in their resources, their time, their energy, and their money to make something bigger happen. Going back to my quick video on my best and worst scenario, I should add the Oakland County story also, that we looked at filling Wednesdays for that park. We weren't going to do a promotion and target a market like unemployed persons on a Saturday when we had people who were willing to pay and could pay, and demand was higher on a beautiful Saturday summer day in a water park. So that target market was invited to participate on a Wednesday when we were open. And because we had done our due diligence about really understanding our business patterns and the way our operation really had people coming and going and when and who, we knew we had an opportunity with that Wednesday day in particular, that we didn't have a lot of group business. We didn't naturally attract transient business, so we wanted to target a certain market to go after. So keep in mind all that business intelligence that we've generated or looked at that was internal or secondary or primary that we've gathered, we're applying it all right here. That information doesn't sit back. Carry it with you, because we need it to be really good at target marketing. So the idea with our strategy is this chapter really starts to wrap up this whole worksheet or strategy section. I mentioned to you earlier that market planning is divided really into 2 distinct sections for me. One is strategy based, and then based on what we've learned and gathered from that, we're going to tactically go after that market and make something, again, different happen and positive happen for our organizations. So having said that, you know we've just spent time gathering all our assessment data. We're going to use that assessment data, and we're going to build on that moving forward to identifying target markets. So again, keep in mind that every marketing plan should have 4 to 8 target markets they're focusing on. And if you recall, the reason we don't have just one is because putting all the eggs in one basket is incredible risk, right? The reason we don't have 20 is because our resources and our time and energy and money could never meet the needs of those 20 really effectively. So most organizations, when they embrace target marketing, will focus on 4 to 8 target markets in any given time. Now this semester, each one of you needs to own 1 target market. And the reason we do that, or I do that and require that of you, because if you can own 1 target market and understand and apply the steps to effective target marketing, I know you can do it for 4 to 8. So please always remember, a typical organization marketing plan is going to have 4 to 8 target markets identified and tactics to reach those markets, whether they're transient individuals or groups of people, school groups, church groups, other kinds of groups that we might attract in our business. Having said that, you will own 1, but you're going to own it thoroughly and effectively, and again, really easy to make that 4 to 8 when you are a practitioner in the field and responsible for the marketing effort. Again, my dream is everyone's responsible for the marketing effort, and they understand and they'd be engaged in this process. So I've never written a marketing plan in isolation. I have always luckily learned early in my career, but only will do it if I have a team of people to facilitate this process. I could sit down and write one. You can too. But if I bounce ideas off people, if we gather experts in their part of the operation and we bring those people together, we will make a better set of decisions. Time and time again, it is such a fun part of the process. And I know being a class, you might be working more in isolation, but I encourage you in every step of the process, bounce ideas not only off of me, bounce ideas off people you know, and just ask questions, because every human being can contribute to this process and help us think about marketing differently. Keep using the worksheet. Know that we're going to apply and use everything you've done so far. We're talking here about identifying target markets. We're going to pick one eventually, but again, if we were an organization writing a plan, we would be picking anywhere from 4 to 8, depending on our industry, our market, our resources. And then what we're going to do is walk through the remaining steps of the process. So all of Chapter 7 and this first part of 8 works with target market identification, really understanding positioning of that market, answering key questions related to the size of the market, internally and externally. Currently, how many do we serve in that market segment? Externally, how many are out there in that market segment? What kind of needs and interests do they have? How accessible are they to me? They might exist, but I can't figure out how to reach them or get to them. And then what's their behavior like? What are they doing when they're not with us? What do they do when they're with us? What do they like? What do they enjoy? What do they read? What do they listen to? I need to understand everything about this market segment if I'm going to apply target marketing. And I venture to say in our business, we don't really know. We don't even know who we currently serve. We don't know, and I might know I had 500,000 visitors to my festival, or I may know that I have 1,000 people a week in my bowling center, or I may know that I have 80% occupancy in my hotel. But what do you know about those people? If we take the 500,000, what percent are families with kids under 5? What percent are families with teens? What percent are single people? What percent are senior citizens? What percent, as we further use target marketing variables, might be interested, might be men in their 20s interested in competitive bowling, who are in it for the challenge and the thrill, right? And the whole idea of competition. You can see that market, I know, in your head right now as I start to describe it. And that's how it should be. We should be so in tune with their needs, wants, and desires, and we figure out that they exist, that we don't serve all of them now, and there's more to be served that would meet the needs of one of our business demands, some of the information we learned about our intelligence, the days we need to fill, a Tuesday at a golf course, not a Sunday, right? That kind of idea. And then utilize all that information to make a better decision. So I love, love, love target marketing, because I think, again, this is a significant contribution you're going to make to the organization you're writing the plan for. But almost second level of importance, right, is what you'll do in the industry. We will learn to be better target marketers. The data is available. It typically means we haven't accessed it, but if it's not, we need to find it. I need to know out of my 500,000 visitors who they are, what they look like, how satisfied they are, because that will be a core function of effective marketing today and in the future. Once we gather all that, we decide that this is the market we want to go after, we're going to write a marketing objective. And then that transitions to the first step of tactically owning that market, going after that market successfully, and making an impact on our organization. So as we move forward, it's going to be a 3-step process. We're going to first identify all the possibilities. Oftentimes, really, organizations just go with what they know, who they currently serve, what's common in the industry. But if you remember, even from my real life story, thinking outside the box here is going to be incredibly valuable and important. Utilizing all that assessment information and really being more strategic about what's happening in our market with our competition, what's happening with the market overall, the people that we've served in the past, the ones we haven't served, what's the potential out there, and then again strategically going after that. So first, identifying the possibilities. Second, we want to understand their needs and behaviors. We're going to do due diligence, And we're going back to secondary data or any primary data that might exist internally. And we're going to go find out what all do we know about this group of people. And if we don't have information, we've got to go get it. And if we decide not to get it, we take a bigger risk. And if we decide not to target groups of people, we take even bigger risk. So we have to start this process in our organizations and first within you. Finally, once we understand their needs and behaviors and all the possibilities, we want to finalize and select through brand positioning and then write an actual marketing objective, as I mentioned, moving in that. So I'm really going to break this kind of video into 3 sections to not make it incredibly long. And so let's talk about first how we're going to identify the possibilities. And then in the second video, I'll talk about understanding needs and behaviors a little, and then finally take you through a tactical process of how to finalize and select that and write that target market objective. So let's talk about identifying the possibilities first. Again, an exciting opportunity in our organizations to consider who we have served in the past and what our existing market segments look like, who we maybe reflect on who we've targeted in the past, where we've put our investments in. You know, in this organizational assessment, you should have seen where all the marketing efforts have gone. You know, who on the website does it appear the organization's targeting? By what kind of pictures are they using, right? What kind of language are they using? Maybe there are tabs or links to certain groups of people like families, weddings, right? Click here, click here. Then you know and you can understand that there are certain groups of people already they're targeting and that those groups have particular needs and wants out of my organization, and as such, I'm giving them some special attention because I've decided to target them in my business. But we should have seen in those tactical marketing examples, whether it was a press release or a coupon or an advertisement, that those tactics matched who those targets were. Now, in our perfect world, right, we'd have a marketing plan that clearly identified that we were going to increase the number of weddings from 10 to 20, by this next year, and we went about that through these 10 actions this last year. Now, for half of our organizations, they don't have a formal marketing plan, so we wouldn't have seen that. But even within those half that do have a formal plan, did we really see and learn in those real organization plans that they had an identified target market objective and that they had these 10 tactics or 8 or 20 or whatever the number was, things that they were going to do to reach that objective? I think, again, even though we're writing marketing plans, we tend to be pretty vague and non-committal in terms of our commitment to an objective, to setting a goal, right? A number, a measurable means to understand where we're going and with how much emphasis then our actions need to take. If I want to grow this business by 1% occupancy next year, well, shoot, I can do that today. I can charge everybody $1, do this great promotion, and I'm going to fill that no problem, right? But that's probably not the only issue. That's why we look at RevPAR and lodging, right? That's why we look at yield, and we're trying to grow both rate and occupancy, and it's that variable together that we would shoot for. So where am I going to grow that if that's one of my organizational objectives, is to make more revenue or more profitability next year? How am I going to increase RevPAR, right? Amongst what segments? Well, again, I have to know my patterns of business. Where do I have opportunities? And what markets might make sense to go after to do that? If your restaurant is sitting open, right, from 4 to 6 p.m., we have to say who might be available to even come between 4 and 6 p.m. So thinking of our business intelligence and our patterns of business, thinking about our competition and what they're doing, what we have, what we're good at, reflecting on that right now SWOT analysis that looks at us overall. Let's look at the possibilities in our organization for market segments to actually go after. So identification also reflects in a term, again, that I've used already called market segmentation. We're going to take this overall mass market, we're going to break it into like characteristics, but we haven't picked the ones we want to go after yet. We're just going to think about our business very directly. So divide it into common characteristics, and again, always reflecting that these people for my business makes sense to split them apart because they are alike. Men and women are different as it comes to certain parts of our industry. Men and women aren't at all different in a whole bunch of other aspects of our industry in terms of their needs and wants. Let's talk about business travelers. A business traveler that's a man versus a business traveler that's a woman, are they really that different in terms of the needs they have? There might be some greater emphasis on things like safety and security, right? But that's a big issue for all travelers. It just might be a heightened issue for a female traveler. But in general, do they need the same things from us? The answer might be yes. And if that's the case, we don't break them apart by dividing that. Gender wouldn't be an issue, maybe in that example. So they're not always the same. Conversely, in a fitness center, if you're thinking about a fitness experience, if I'm writing a marketing plan for that, I'm going to think about men and women's needs as different. That a female's fitness needs, wants, desires are different than a man's on some level. So maybe it makes sense for me to take that mass market and use gender to break up the group. So always just remember here that we're looking for things that they have a common appeal in my business. There's nothing generic about this. That's one of the most challenging things about target marketing is it's not easy to say, okay, all of you tourism businesses, you can just use this market segment. There might be some similarities, but we really have to look at our market specifically, our organization specifically, our competition specifically, to even process this information. So one of the reasons you can't do target marketing in your organization is if you haven't gathered that data and insight. If you haven't done a competitive analysis, if you don't really understand your own internal data and information, it makes target marketing incredibly hard. So it's no wonder organizations have shied away from it, to be honest. But we're going to make them better than that, right? Be in this with me. Come on. So first we want to identify all of the potential segments that are out there that make sense for my business. And we want to do that for several reasons, as I've mentioned. First of all, we're going to be more effective with our use of our marketing dollars. And I say dollars like resources. You know, it could be my time. I'm going to be better use of my time when I'm really zoned in and focused on certain groups of people that we need to invest in this year to make something bigger happen for our organization so we can achieve our goals and objectives as an organization, right? Not just as a department, as a whole organization. So I'm going to spend my time more wisely. I'm going to invest any resource I might use more wisely, whether it's a partnership, a trade opportunity, or actual cash dollars. But I'm going to be a great steward of our resources, our time, our money, and our stuff, right? To make sure I've invested in that wisely. And that stuff, you know, might be, again, any logoed item. You know, it costs $10 each for a t-shirt to be printed with our logo on it. That's a $10 asset of my organization. I want to make sure I have used that in a wise fashion and targeted how I use my merchandise, how I use my brochure delivery, right? How I focus my investment on and having my website redesigned in a more effective way. It makes it all easier, and I'm a better steward of those resources when I understand that there are segments I'm targeting, and if I do so, I will produce a better return. Secondly, it's going to give me a much better understanding of groups' needs and wants because I have to use and find that information. And if I have that, then I use it to my advantage to meet their needs and wants better. Simple as that. And if I don't use it, then shame on me because I have lost all the benefits of segmentation. But now that I know what a female fitness consumer who's looking for when they're seeking to relieve stress and live longer, right, and have lower cholesterol and other issues related to their fitness goals. Now that I know that about them, then I can design programs and services and policies that better meet their needs. And when I do that and my competition does not, guess where they're going to come? They're going to want to come to me because I've done that for them. So I'm going to make very tactical, conscientious effort towards reaching a group of people that I want to serve because I know our policies, our programs, our offerings, our staff, our volunteers, right? I know we can make a difference to that group of people and we can do it better than everybody else. So kind of a rule of thumb here about if you're going to go into segmentation and target marketing, which I'm not writing a marketing plan without it. So if you're coming along with me, you're hopefully going to buy in. But if you're going to do that, you're going to own this market. You're not going to go into picking a target market that you want to dabble in or you want to be just like everybody else. You're either going to own it or don't pick it. So I'll say that multiple times here, but firmly believe that, again, take full advantage of the idea that we take this mass market and segment it and then pick those segments to target, but then own that target market. And then finally, it's going to be one of the benefits is we're going to more effectively position our entire organization, and I can utilize marketing tools called positioning to figure out where we are in this market based on the needs of this market in particular, and then move us in a direction that'll produce a better outcome. And so we're going to do that by the end of this section today. So lots of benefits to it. The question is, how come everybody doesn't do it? And what are those limitations? I've alluded to a few already, but I want you to think about organizations you've worked for again or interned with and how they even approach sending messages out to people. Who are they sending those to, if they're sending them? And aside from just the quality of service and word of mouth, how are they using their resources? And again, some of them may be doing some of these things now. But one limitation to segmentation is there's an expense associated with doing this. If you buy into the idea of doing it, then guess what? I need to understand currently who we're serving and how we break those down into from a big market into groups of people. Can we break them down by the reason they're here? They're here for business or pleasure. Can we break them down by they're with a group or they're a transient traveler, right? Can we break them down by gender? Can we break them down by age? Can we break them down by who they traveled with, right? Can we break them down for their purpose of their visit with us and the time of day they came and the day of week they came and the month of year they came, right? I don't care if you're a restaurant, a festival, right? Another attraction, a lodging facility, a campground, again, we all can benefit, but there's an expense to doing so. So oftentimes I think organizations understand the concept, but one of the big limitations is they're not willing, they're too afraid, and it feels better to them to just do lots of things, trying to cast a big net to get everyone. The irony is that big net is too heavy and too broad, and it doesn't get to enough. If we take that net and zero in and shoot it out, and we're better at it than everybody else, and we're focused on their needs or wants, it's going to more than return when we do it correctly. But there's an expense. Realize that. Secondly, it's difficult to segment correctly. And in this chapter alone, you'll recognize there are several ways to go about, right, target marketing, to segment the overall market. It's not easy. And scientifically, getting that data to apply different techniques is costly. So recognizing many of our organizations are smaller in nature and don't have the luxury of significant amounts to invest, we're going to take a kind of a simplistic view of how to target market, more from a philosophy and utilizing secondary data to do the best we can, but recognize it is challenging, and the better data we have to break this market down by who do we currently serve broken down, as well as what's out there. What's all the demand look like, and what categories would we break that demand down? It is a challenge. It's not an easy process because, again, go back to if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So it's difficult also to define that actual size of the market. So I may decide to invest in it. I may have the tools to do it, but I get to this point of the process and I'm not sure how many people we're talking about. So for example, I currently know at my YMCA that we're serving 100 senior citizens between 65 and 75 that live within 5 miles. Their membership data tells me that, right? I should be able to plot all my members and know exactly where they're coming from. If you remember weeks ago, 3 pieces of information I will never write a marketing plan without. And one is understanding as much as I can about our existing consumer. And right here is a perfect example, because if I don't even know we have X amount of a segment of people, how do I know if going after more of them makes any sense whatsoever? So for example, if I know I have 100 seniors between 65 and 75 that live within this 5 miles, then can I figure out how many senior citizens there are between 65 and 75 within our 5 miles? If I have 100, but I use census data and some other tools to figure out how many are out there, now I can figure out if this might make some sense. Because if there's 110 in this whole area I live in and I have 100 already, it's going to be a completely change of a tactic. I'm going to talk about just maintaining those customers, right, and making sure I have an internal planned quality service plan to make sure I don't lose and my retention is really high, versus shooting my net out again with a whole bunch of messages to the senior market trying to get them. I'm not even going to have a return of that investment, and I'm going to think it might be the tools were bad. Well, the tools might not have been bad. Maybe I'm serving everybody that I can possibly get in that segment as is. So know that there is a challenge here, but we're going to walk through a simplistic view of how to, and more importantly, I want you to think about it differently and always think about it, because if I pick a bad market, right, to target, I've screwed this all up. And again, that's why I think organizations are very hesitant to venture into it, because there's a lot of fear. And then finally, and it relates to what I just said, it's selecting that market that's not viable. You know, I pick seniors, but I'm already serving as many as I can. Or I'm looking for, teenagers that have availability, to do an after-school program, where maybe I find out so many of those teens are already tied up with other things, and I'm picking a market that doesn't make a lot of sense for right after school, 16-year-olds trying to come to my fitness center or wherever. So again, I've got to be really careful in how I go about this process. And we know incredible benefits to it, but there are limitations and risks. And that's why I believe most organizations don't. But I'm never writing a marketing plan without targeting markets. And I'm not going to be vague. I'm going to be very specific. But if we do our homework, we feel incredibly confident. And again, our head should be going like this. As I think about a market I'm going after, by the end of this whole section, you should be going, oh yes, we're going after this, and this is going to be awesome. So as we move forward. So know that segmentation, I just bring a couple slides here quickly, that we segment things naturally in our industry. Here's an example of hotels, resorts, and casinos, by revenue. And it takes this pie chart and breaks it down, right, by bars and taverns, fast food, full service, etc. So the concept of food and beverage isn't all the same. We know that. It's broken down into segments. And so I bring this to you because we're used to segmenting our industry, and that's really the similar process. So here's U.S. pizza sales. Do you know over half of pizza companies are independent pizza places? I had no idea. It's interesting when we look at data again, because our guess may have been different than what is actual. So I'm in this section, again, going to rely on as much data as I can find to take the bias out of what I believe, right, and make it factual. I'm going to use data to sell why we're doing what we're doing, but most importantly, make sure I'm doing the right thing before I even have to tell others, or we work together that it all makes sense to us why, and we feel really confident about this decision to move forward with this target market group. So we segment things naturally, even in lodging, right? We take different customers for different types of products. We didn't used to do that. Really, when I worked for Courtyard by Marriott, they were the first to really look at lodging very distinctly and said, we're going after the business traveler, and we want to know from the business traveler what they want. Great market researchers. I still love this, right? They did 10,000 surveys to business travelers and said, what do you want out of a hotel, right? They did pilot studies. We actually had, again, a semi-truck that we would walk visitors through and say, what do you think about this mocked up guest room? What do you like? What do you not like? And they would tell us, right? We piloted. We let people, there was one hotel built in Atlanta that was the test hotel. And they took a whole hotel and got feedback before they built all the other hotels nationwide. Heavily relied on data to build it. Build it and they will come. Well, that'll only happen if you built what they wanted. So when we ask them what we want, they tell us what to do, and it makes it easier. So no different than this class, right? I'm going to ask you what you think about this class and ways to improve. And if we meet the needs of the market, we hopefully will do something different than everybody else. Whole idea. So we're used to looking at, again, our market as not one thing in our industry. We're used to taking even businesses and breaking it down. This might represent overall, demand, but Expedia and Kayak and Priceline, who's getting more of the business, right? Kind of idea. So when we look to define our target market, I pull this article out because I love, if you look down here, this paragraph right here in particular, but it starts with the current state of the economy. Having a well-defined target market is more important than ever. See, it's not just me saying this. For years, no one can afford to target everyone. I love how they said that in 2 sentences. I wish I had that gift. Small businesses can effectively compete with large companies by targeting a niche, or 4 to 8 niches that they're going after to own. So we're talking about big companies as well as small independent operations need to apply the concept of target marketing. Many businesses say they target anyone interested in my services. I go back to and say, you're serving anyone who's interested in your services, but you're not necessarily targeting. And what we mean here again is spending our resources, time, energy, money, going after groups of people to produce a return. Now, I have anybody walk into my public facility, I'm going to serve them with incredible service standards, right, as I would to anyone. I'm not going to have them walk in and go, hey, wait, you're not a senior citizen. I'm targeting senior citizens. I'm only going to take care of them. That's nonsense. So we're going to serve everyone. We're going to target with our resources because we're trying to produce a return for that effect. So remember that in that case. And then specifically, as I read in this article, targeting a specific market does not mean you have to exclude people that do not fit your criteria from buying from you. Rather, target marketing allows you to focus your marketing dollars and your brand message, which is what we're doing next. How easy is it to decide what kind of language I want to use when I know who I'm trying to talk to? And all of those people are very different, would want to hear from me differently because their wants and needs are different from me, right? So rather, target marketing allows you to focus your dollars, your brand message on specific market that is more likely to buy from you than other markets. It is much more affordable, efficient, and effective way to reach potential people. So this is nothing new. A gazillion hits when you Google target marketing. And the interesting thing is pretty much people are talking about it in the same way. What a target market is and how you're going to do it. The difference here for us are the variables we're going to think about and use are different because I like to think of our industry as incredibly special. Well, on some level, we're like any other organization in terms of target marketing, but we're not quite. So you could generically look at target marketing, but I want to introduce to you some ideas in this chapter that are about how our industry would look at variables a little differently. So those segmentation components that we're going to use in our business is a geographic variable first. So recognize that we are really not going after everyone everywhere. That automatically all of you will absolutely have a geographic boundary from which we pull our visitors, right? Or the people we're interested in serving. So I'm a bowling center in my town. My pull isn't going to be 2-hour radius unless I'm doing something amazingly different and unique in my bowling center. It's probably limited to my geographic area within miles and or related to where the next bowling center is. Where's that overlap or boundary kind of thing. So my geography might be a few miles. It might be 10 miles, right? If I'm in a middle of a rural area, it might be as big as 50 miles if I'm the closest one. But geography is a boundary. If I'm Walt Disney World, My geography is way different. It's not 50 miles, right? It might be more worldwide or US based, certainly, and internationally based. Rest of North America, right? South America, Europe. But we've got another Disney property there, so maybe some overlap, people wanting to come to the States. You get the idea. Every organization in our field has a geographic boundary. So at a minimum, we should be defining our market using that as one of the variables. So again, recognize in this section, we're trying to identify the possibilities. So to do that, we're going to have to take this mass market and break it into segments that make sense. Geography is automatically one of them. I'm going to look for people in the Chicago area, right? And I'm also going to look for people in the Southeast Michigan area, if I'm a Traverse City-based resort, as an example. Demographic variables are incredibly common to break a market down by as well. So I'm going to use things like gender when it makes sense, but remember that example I just gave you. Sometimes gender makes sense, sometimes it doesn't make any sense at all because the needs and wants aren't any different. But maybe age does. Maybe the needs of a teenager are different in my amusement park than the needs of a senior citizen, right? So age tends to be, again, I don't want to say always used, but tends to be oftentimes used in our field because the needs of the market are different based on their age or their family lifestyle that they're in. I have small kids, might be correlated to age, but I have small kids and the needs I have from this restaurant are very different than when my children are now grown, or when I'm with a date, or I'm with my parents, or I'm with my colleagues from work. So recognize that demographic age might be more related to family status, single, married, partnered, right, whatever that variable is, young kids at home, no kids, etc. Other issues related to that might be income, race, ethnicity, religion, family composition, education level, occupation, employment status, etc. So demographic variables. In this chapter, there is a table that identifies our 6 variables that we're going to use to possibly break our market down, and it gives descriptions to that. I love this table. I use it all the time. Every time I work this part of the marketing process, I break out the tables and I start to walk through each of the segments, making sure I've thought about each one. So going back to geography for a second, it might not be where people live, it might be where people work. And for example, we were working with Canton Leisure Services over in Southeast Michigan, and they had a championship golf course. And we were considering markets and taking the overall market and breaking it down. And one of the geography variables we used were not necessarily people who lived in Canton, but people who worked in Canton, because they had several facilities in the area that were 3 shifts of workers. So they had workers that were getting out of work at 8 a.m. in that market. So we identified the possibility that let's break this market down by not people who live in Canton or live within X amount of miles. Let's think about people who work within 10 miles of our championship golf course that have 3rd shift opportunities. So at 8 a.m. when they got out of work, maybe we could get people from their workplaces to come golf on a Tuesday morning. Because guess what? We're empty. Did I tell you that? Oh, that's right. I have business intelligence that proves I have opportunities on Tuesday mornings. Who's available? Guess what? I use geography as a boundary, but it wasn't where people live. It's where they work. So use this table. Please, when you think about your overall market, and walk through each one and say, okay, what is our geographic boundary or boundaries, right? Does marital status make a difference? The fact that someone's married or not married or has a partner or no partner, does it matter in my food service establishment? Does my fast serve restaurant or fast food restaurant, does it make any difference? I don't think so. So if not, go to the next one. Does education level make a difference? And so as I walk through each one, I'm saying, for my business, does this variable make a difference? The fact that you have a bachelor's degree, is that any difference than someone who has a high school diploma? Does it make a difference? Do your needs and wants change at all because of that in my bowling center, as an example? So walk through each of these, decide which ones make sense, and go through the entire list. So almost for certain, you would have demographic variable or variables you would use to break your market down. Next, we talk about behavioral types of variables. And really what we're saying here is, what do they do? How do we reach them? What kind of behaviors do they have that may or may not make a difference? And I'll go back to my bowling center here, but behavior is competitive type bowlers and non-competitive type bowlers. And in this case, I'm going to break that separately, because a recreational bowler has very different needs and wants from me than a competitive bowler. Because what's a competitive bowler going to look for? And some of you went, I don't know. I'm not a competitive bowler. I don't know any competitive bowlers. I don't know what they're looking for. That's why we have to do our homework. If we don't know, we just bias it and go, I don't know, and I'm not going to target them. That's going to be our wrong answer. We need to find out then. I don't know. What does a competitive bowler look for? What are they looking to have? So in this case, I'm going to learn quickly that the lane oil is incredibly important to a competitive bowler, and how I've taken care of the equipment and the lanes so they can, again, achieve a highest score possible and meet their competition needs, right? So a recreational bowler probably doesn't even know that we do that to our lanes, right? So their interest is the lighting, the sound, right? All the other kind of things that would make this, and their social needs, potentially met with a recreational component. The fact that we can bring up bumpers so the 6-year-old can bowl with the 35-year-old at the same time and have an experience together. That's what they're going to look for. So behavioral variables, we really need to understand our market and to see how they're different, and if indeed a behavioral variable is one we use to break our market down differently. Benefits-based, to me, in our industry is particularly exciting and important, because not everyone comes to us for the same reasons. And if I polled all of you right now and said, why would you be interested in my fitness center? You would not be surprised, because you're really sharp. You would know that people are in it for different reasons, right? Some of you, as I mentioned earlier, may want to reduce stress, right? I run so I reduce stress and I feel healthier and more vibrant, right? Stay focused and can handle the challenges of everyday life. Some people do that for that reason. Others run because they want to be healthier and have their 20 minutes of cardiovascular multiple times a week, so they have good heart health and will live longer, right? Some exercise and participate in a fitness center for socialization, to meet people, to engage, to be around, to talk. There's a whole group of people, not necessarily caring how healthy they are, not trying to reduce stress. They want to have fun, right? And they might be coming to our center for that reason. And then we know all the myriad of other reasons: body toning, fitting, sculpting, competitions, weightlifting, kinds of things, or body mass, losing weight, kinds of ideas. So whole bunch of benefits they're seeking out of our experience. Do you think it's pretty important we understand that? I know it's a rhetorical question. It absolutely is. But have we done that? Do we really know why our current visitors, our current employees come here? What motivates them? What are the benefits they're trying to get out of this, right? You may even have employees or volunteers who are there to socialize. Some who are there for the paycheck. some who are there because they want to make a difference in people they're serving's lives. And they're looking for that as their primary motive for being there. So the benefit people seek out of our experiences that we deliver is incredibly important information. And in general, we don't even understand who we serve demographically. We certainly have not become really sophisticated with understanding why people, the benefits they're seeking out of the experience. Remember that people buy benefits. They don't buy features. They don't buy the Olympic-sized swimming pool, the 20 cardiovascular bikes and treadmills and ellipticals, right? And the free weights and the classes that we offer. They don't buy those things. They buy how those things affect them, right? I buy how all of those things you do are going to meet my needs, are going to fulfill the benefits that I seek out of this experience. You have a traveler coming from out of town to your restaurant. What are they seeking out of this experience when they're a sole diner? Right? We've seen some great changes just in the last few years with meeting the needs of travelers who are traveling as transients, individuals. They don't have a group they're with. They don't have a convention they're with. They're there for, and a large percentage of them are transient type travelers. So I'm on my own and I'd like to have a nice dinner, but I feel awkward or odd going into a restaurant when they say, "Oh, just one today? All alone today?" Yeah, thanks. It's awkward enough, and now I even feel worse. But instead, we see really cool things, finally, for those travelers, like communal, I call it communal living tables, where we have one big, huge table in our restaurant, and anybody who comes in, who might be a solo traveler, right, or a visitor, could be welcomed there. And they could eat alone and quietly if they prefer, but they also could engage in conversation and meet people. So what a cool, cool development in the food service industry, because we started to better recognize the benefits people are seeking out of this experience. And instead of ignoring that need or want, we're targeting it now. Isn't that exciting? So lots of cool things, but recognize in our business, we need to think about the benefit people seek out of this experience. And that may or may not be related to the other variables that we've already identified. So on the worksheet again, you would think about what again, togetherness, individualness, socialization, fitness, what are all the things people are looking for? The next variable that we might want to consider is what we call psychographic variables. And we really say these are more lifestyle, value-based, personality-based, attitude-based kind of descriptions. It might be a family that is seeking, togetherness and engagement. Having worked in the resort business, I see some families that came to our resort that were wanting to do that, where they were doing all their activities together, whether it was a 6-year-old and a 12-year-old child and a parent, doing the activity together. And then I see some families at a resort setting who want to allow those individuals chances to grow individually and not just all together. So kids programs at resorts grew phenomenally over the last many years because there were opportunities for younger people to have their own type of experience in a resort setting. So the psychographic variable in that case might be families who come together but are looking to grow individually, or families that come together who are trying to do things collectively to grow that family unit that way. So recognize the more I know about my visitors and travelers in the psychographic area, the better I'm going to be. So in this area, we also talk about loyalty type status programs. In fact, I just read a research study today about camping and RV ownership. And one of the areas in a nationwide study on RV ownership that the industry hasn't done a really great job with are loyalty programs. These RV owners want and need a loyalty program, just like a hotel lodging property has loyalty programs in so many of the branded properties. these types of travelers in RVs want that from their accommodation site as well. So they have a high interest, high importance they're placing on it, and they put the industry here. We call that the importance performance analysis, right? We ask our visitors, our employees, etc., how important are these variables? And then we also say to them, how are we doing on those same variables? And then we compare them. And when the importance is here and their satisfaction with us is here, that is a gap we need to address. Those are opportunities for improvement instantly. Part of the primary research process that was in our Chapter 5 as well, called the importance performance analysis. I won't do a study about consumers. If I'm allowed to be involved in it, I'm not doing one without learning importance, because that's all about people's expectations. And then again, if I know their expectation and I know how they perceive us, I have an opportunity for information to help me make my decision about what I'm going to do. If conversely their expectation is here, the importance they place, and we're doing this, then that's great because I am exceeding their expectation. So I want to make sure I maintain that, right, in that case. Now, if their importance they place on it is really low and we're doing this, then we are doing way more than we need to. So I probably am not going to invest any more resources, but I can't take it away, because if I take it away, guess what happens? The importance people place on it will kind of go higher, because now it's like, hey, what happened to that water slide? It wasn't that important to me, but now that you took it away, it's now kind of more important. I don't know what's going on there. So all of those value kinds of things I could learn from the research we conduct about the people we serve or the employees. Wouldn't it be nice to know what your employees, how important they put the fact that we do a end of the year celebration party as a unit? How important is that to them? And then how do they think we did with it? But we don't ask our external customers, and we're not asking our internal customers, and I wish we would. Why do we not find out what's important to the people we serve and how we're doing? Importance performance analysis. Even though small tangent here, it completely relates to understanding psychographic variables, because it's helping us understand the values people have. We know in our industry in general, cleanliness is a big issue, kind of across the board. I would say it was probably the number one issue in every aspect of our business I can think of. If we're not clean, then we have big problems, because our industry, people we're serving across the board, expect that. But think about all of the other things we do that maybe it's less clear how important those things are to people, because we might not understand what they value, etc. So now if I take that information and I break it down by segments, let's look at men and women. Do they have greater importance on things than others? Let's break it down by ages. Do teenagers think about this differently than single adults in their 20s, than senior citizens? Do they look at this differently? So the more sophisticated we get with gathering data about who we're serving and who we're not serving, in breaking the information down across these variables, the better we're going to understand. We're not just one big mass market. Okay, we might have 92% satisfaction with the people we've polled, but let's break them down into categories and let's see how we've done across the board, because geez, I could have somebody at 100 and somebody at 80 and get to 90. So does that variance exist when we look at it? So psychographic, value-based, really, really important, but we've got to ask the right questions to understand that information. And then finally, in our industry in particular, syncographic variables are really important too, to take this market and consider breaking them down by time available. Syncographic simply means, is time a factor that might describe this market differently? For example, I'm looking at my movie theater for people who are available during the day, during the school year, because my number one most popular time in my business are holidays and summer breaks and weekends when people are not in school, right? Knowing that's my busiest time, I probably have a Thursday sitting here during the day that's wide open empty. So the target market I'm going after are people that are available during the day midweek. And in that case, it might be senior citizens. In that case, it might be, again, shift workers. In that case, it may be other people like stay-at-home parents, moms or dads that are home with young people, that we can get to our theater, right, because they have a time availability. So kind of, I like to say, unique to our business, because we have so many different times that we're available to serve people that that syncographic variable relates to us. So having said that, recognize 6 different areas we want to take this mass market and consider each one to take that circle again and break down the market into slices of pie that make sense, because these are variables I may need to use, because if I break them down, it makes sense for my business, because they are more alike than not. So we're going to use these components to take our first step, and that's identifying the possibilities. And when we do that, right, we know that geographic and demographic variables tend to be the easiest to break down. These other behavioral benefits, psychographic variables, they're more difficult. We're going to need better information from our organization and from the outside world to kind of use those variables some more. Your challenge is, I want you to be able to take the market overall and break it down into distinct descriptors using this kind of process. So for example, I'll use age in this case, taking my circle pie and breaking this market down by, as you see, age, because it made sense. You know, the 18 to 25-year-old market thinks about my business differently than the over 55-year-old market. Okay, so this tends to be, right, demographic, an example of taking the overall demand and breaking it down using just age, because age, you said, right, was a variable that the markets looked at us differently. 18-year-olds thought about my bowling center differently. Their needs and wants were different than a 55-year-old in this case. Conversely, using other types of descriptors will help us really end up with not just an age as a variable that helps us look at that market. We would use other descriptors like an 18-year-old male who's interested in competitive bowling and socializing with friends, having fun at the same time. That would be a descriptor of a whole human that comes, or that we're marketing toward in that example. So when we know those other details, like they're frugal, they love being different, they're influenced by their peers, packaging of this experience is important, but they're really tech savvy, right? They're inquisitive. That is a different feeling than just knowing age as a breakdown. So we want to move towards a more sophisticated target marketing, and there's lots of variables that we can use, but there's lots of challenges I recognize with trying to really understand the market in such great detail that we could create a description like that. We are going to help make that happen this semester, though. So here's an experience seeker. That's how they describe this market. And Tourism Australia undertook a research project which identified common segments across different cultures that would be receptive to the Australian experience and called them the experience seeker. This target market is highly predisposed to Australia's offer and is more likely to stay longer, spend more, and disperse to different regional areas. They are by definition looking for unique, involving, and personal experiences from their holidays. Using psychographic research, studies find how travelers think and feel to determine personal factors that influence them to travel. Experience seekers are long-haul travelers who are less likely affected by traditional barriers to travel, distance, time, and cost. They are more informed, they're interested and curious about travel destinations. They're about 30 to 50% of all potential outbound travelers from the key sources. So moving down, here's what they want out of the experience, and that's actually on the website for Tourism Australia that describes this market. They want social interactions and personal experiences. They want to meet and interact with locals. They're not going to fast food restaurants that's a chain they can get in their home area. They are looking for authentic experiences, right? They want to experience something different from their normal day-to-day life. They understand and learn about different lifestyles and cultures. They want to participate in it. They want to challenge themselves, etc. That type of visitor is way different than just thinking about anybody is interested in coming to Australia. Here's just an organic bakery, and they've done the same thing. So we could take something big like the travel company, the travel department for the country of Australia, but now we're just going to take a bakery. And the ideal customer at their bakery is willing to take a little extra time and spend a little extra money to eat healthy, naturally grown food in the morning. He or she knows the difference between store-bought or street vendor baked goods, make no promises about quality, and those that do, the customer knows that organic food tastes as good as or better than conventional grown food and believes that there does not need to be any difference between eating what is good for the environment and eating what is healthy. This ideal customer would look for organic labels in grocery stores and be more inclined to buy from socially conscious brands everywhere. So they're serving people in the valley that commute through the city on a daily basis. They live or work within a 5-mile walk. They believe in nutritional value in organic baked goods. They believe in paying a premium for high-quality products. They're 22 to 40 years old. They have professional jobs, and they earn $40,000 a year at least. I see that person in such greater detail than I do anybody who wants to come to my bakery. Okay, so we will ask you to do the same thing, and that is take a look at each of those types of variables and tell me and tell your organization, should they take and have a mass market or break it into segments. So in this case, the target market was grandparents, one of our student marketing plans, and they looked at all the variables and used data to support what they learned. So again, once again, you're going to have to go into secondary data sources to help you understand things about these market segments. What do you know about grandparents? Well, we know that most grandparents no longer are working, but they're collecting additional methods of income like Social Security with a mean of about $18,000 of retirement income a year. That data was from the U.S. Census Bureau. We can understand about markets when we do our research. Moving down to spending patterns, we see here spending ranges from small gifts and larger contributions for educational expenses, living expenses, and finally assistance with medical or dental expenses. There's a study done about senior spending that can help us learn about their needs and wants and their behaviors so we can decide if we're going to target them or not and if this makes sense for our business. This was for a zoo, and this was male and female college students. So again, meaning there was no difference in the needs between males and females, so we could just say college students within a 30-mile radius of Grand Rapids. And this is a zoo using all the variables to describe them, and again, using data to support the information that was gathered. So students on average earn $600 per month, according to data from State University 2013, knowing they have some income. Conversely, here's Leisure Travels, residents of Michigan with 160 miles of Muskegon for the Muskegon Convention and Visitors Bureau. They're 30 to 54 with income of $50,000 or more in children, preschool to preteen. Demographic variables, and again, travel facts and statistics. The U.S. Travel Association could tell us a lot about travelers that look like that. Other sources, again, the American Fact Finder can tell us about what's going on in this area of geography, 160 miles from Muskegon. So take a look at these examples. And again, here is for a yogurt company. They were looking at Grand Rapids families with children between 1 and 5. Very specifically targeting very young children, right, in these families to make a difference. So take a look at these as we move forward, and then we're going to start to move towards understanding their needs and behaviors better.